Why do we develop new products?
Sir?
Yes, Bianca.
Is Candice
Oh,
speaking?
sorry, Candice. No, okay. I was reading a chat as well. Thank you. Yes.
So, doesn't it attract the customer's attention for new ideas and new products?
Yeah, remember, and the answer lies in the main purpose of why we do marketing. Our marketing efforts are all the activities, the combined activities that we do as marketers to A, inform our customers, B, persuade our customers, and C, remind our customers that there is a product available, what the benefits are, and where they can get it. Right? That's basically what marketing is about. So, a new product that enters falls into two categories. It satisfies two of, probably all three of those functions of marketing communication. It is to inform customers of new products, because you only know what's available if somebody tells you that's available. If you don't know it, then you're not aware of it. So it is to inform, yes. It's also to inform, maybe, based on what we did on Wednesday, a product that has reached the maturity stage in its life cycle. And as a result of that, you as a marketer might inform your customers that we are going to remove this particular product. It's become obsolete, so we're going to remove this product completely from our product line. We are going to replace it with something similar, or we're not going to replace it at all, because and those are reasons also why new products are entering, because some products just become obsolete. You don't use it. It's like doing your spring cleaning. I do spring cleaning at my house, tackling my cupboards once a year. If you find a piece of clothing, a pair of pants, a shirt, whatever in your cupboard that you have not worn in the last year, the chances that you're going to wear it this year is very, very. You get rid of it. Okay, but we know some of us are clutterers, so we just want to actually we keep all our stuff. Okay, you know that extra small size T-shirt that you wore when you were in grade 7, it's not going to fit you now because you're a small now, and still we keep it. Sometimes it might be for sentimental reasons, but when we keep products that's functional but we're not using them, then you know what, you might as well get rid of it. I had a tumble dryer that I bought many years ago, when just after my children were born. I think I've probably used it 5 times, and eventually I just got rid of it. I said, it stood there, it took up space, and I never use it. So yes, that's a reason why new products enter the market, and then complete new innovations. Customers' needs change. Because the needs of the customers change, companies manufacture new products to satisfy those changing needs. The example I wanted to use this morning on the way into work, on the radio, they shared a new feature, a new product that was designed in South Korea. And obviously that's where the conversation started. I mean, is it going to take off? Is it going to work? Because we know of many products that was launched, but then it really never took off, and actually, there's no real need for it or no real demand for it. In this case, basically, it's a kind of a GoPro that you put in your head. It's linked to your phone. So while you are walking, looking down onto the screen of your phone, this device is going to warn you when you're 2 meters away from something that you might run into or walk into because you're on your phone. Imagine where we've gone with this. Shouldn't you really just use your 2 eyes and not walk and text? Seriously? I can just imagine. So I don't know. I'm not convinced that will take off. But anyway, let's see if there's. I think what was the first order that was placed for the first Apple computer that that was manufactured, Apple Macintosh? I think it was 50. I think the first order was 50. And yeah, look where they are now. So we never know until actually customers start using it and experience the benefits of it. But it was just interesting that we have gone that full circle of now, instead of watching while we're walking, I can still remember from primary school, you were taught by your parents and your teachers, look left, look right, and look left again, and then only you cross the road. And I think that doesn't happen anymore nowadays. People are glued to their screens of their devices, and they just walk wherever. And yeah, maybe this can resolve that issue. My opinion is it shouldn't be an issue in the first place. But anyway, how do new products develop? People find problems that they can solve. Those are the innovators that come up with those wonderful ideas and then produce products that we obviously are now sharing with our customers. The products that we have identified, the product, as we said on Wednesday, is the most important P of the marketing mix. Without the product, no distribution can happen, no promotion can happen. Pricing is irrelevant because if nothing exists, we can't put a price to that. So it is important, but then equally important, once we have the product, is to make sure that it gets to the customer. And that's where the distribution or the distribution of products come in. And that refers to the one of the other P's of the marketing mix called place. In other words, informing the customers where they can find it and ensuring that it actually is at that point. Now, what you have on your screen is basically a summary of the supply chain activities. Now, to differentiate yourself, also on the right-hand side, remember there's the customer. Now, all activities, upstream activities that happen, those are businesses referred to as intermediaries in this marketing chain or distribution chain that get the resources from the raw materials and convert them to the product or get them to the manufacturer who wants to convert them into something that will become a product that is of use for the customer. So it's all the activities that basically, as an example I've used in class, and if you can picture yourself, or picture me standing in front of a classroom and you sitting behind your desk, you're watching the front of the classroom. Now I take my chair out like Robin Williams did in Dead Poet Society, where he got onto the table, onto his desk. And basically, it's a similar sort of experience. If I stand on a desk or a chair in the front of the classroom, I'll be higher than everybody else. If I then use my left hand facing the classroom, everything that's on my left, if my hand points downwards to the ground and my other hand points downwards to the right, to my right-hand side on the ground, on my left would be all the upstream activities, everything that gets the raw materials out of the ground to where I am here. See in the middle of the screen, the operations, the manufacturer, everything and everybody involved in getting that raw materials right to the manufacturer in the middle, who then manufactures it, which is done the downstream activities, getting the product that's manufactured to the customer, which is on the right-hand side. B, standing on the desk or on the chair in the front of the classroom, represents the manufacturer. I'm the person who's going to make the product that the customer wants. Where do I get my ingredients from? Where do I get my raw materials from? I get it from or through all the upstream activities. In other words, it needs to come from the ground on the left up to me in the middle, and then it goes downstream to the customer, which would be on my right-hand side, representing the floor on my right-hand side. Anybody clear with that analogy? Is that a clear example? Can you picture yourself with such an image? And whenever you have to provide me information about this particular diagram and the upstream and the downstream activities, just think of that standing with your hand stretched 45 degrees on your sides. The one side will pick it up and the other side will put it down. That's basically the up and downstream activities that we find within a distribution channel. Once it's reached the customer can use it. The customer might be happy with it, and that's what you want. The customer says, I'm not happy with it, then basically, because it could be damaged, it could be that the product didn't function properly, it's returned. It's returned to the person who's going to go through the same process again. It can be returned by the customer, but it could also be returned by the wholesalers and the retailers that get it from the manufacturers, and it's broken even before you take it to the shop. Then you're going to take it back to the manufacturer. You're not going to send it to the shop and then let the customer buy a dysfunctional item or product and return it. There's an intervention where any of the downstream or intermediaries in the downstream, the wholesalers, the retailers, that they can return that damaged product to the manufacturer. Everybody clear on this process? Right, let's just see what we can remember. Thank you, Candace. What we can remember from what channel management is. Channel management basically is the flow of transactions, including these products and services, through a distribution channel. It's like water running down a funnel, for instance. Okay, there's a flow. So there's a starting point, and there's an end. The end representing the customer, the starting point, basically the manufacturer. So what happens between manufacturer and customer? That represents the marketing channel. So how it is distributed from manufacturer to customer is where all the intermediaries that's involved in the distribution process find themselves. Right. What are the specific values? What values do these intermediaries in the distribution channel or marketing channel add? What roles can they play? Now, some of them basically just buy from the manufacturer. That's the wholesaler. They supply it to the retailer, or they buy it from the manufacturer. They sell it to the retailer, and the retailer sells it to the customer. They are taking all the risk because sometimes when they have stock, more stock than actually they have a demand for, but they have to keep it in stock because you can't not have a particular product. And I know that it happens very regularly. Fortunately, not as much as some other countries that I've been to. That a product is off the shelf for a number of weeks, and it's not necessarily because there's something wrong with the product. Somewhere in the distribution channel there was a hiccup, and the order wasn't placed in properly. The manufacturer didn't manufacture because there was no order to manufacture a certain number of items. So very often these wholesalers take the risk by taking a lot of stock on, which they then distribute as the need arises, but not necessarily to prevent a delay between the customer needing the product and now the manufacturer still has to manufacture it. If you're launching a new vehicle, for instance, the day that you have launched a new vehicle, you must have items of that new vehicle available for people to see. You must have options in stock as well. It's really only when there's specific color choices, because they're not going to manufacture VW, for instance, are not going to manufacture 100 units in all the colors that's available, if they know that the majority of colors that are sold are either white or silver. So they're going to have more of those items in stock, and then there will be for these specific colors that you can select, which is your they're not going to have necessarily a completed product in that particular version right from the start. There will probably be a delay because there's extra cost involved in specific colors like gold or I don't even know all the different colors it is, or turquoise, whatever color you have. There was a lady in Vredendal here up the West Coast. I know she was quite popular because she drove a pink Mercedes-Benz. And she came down to Cape Town every time that she had to replace her vehicle. And she stuck with the Mercedes-Benz. And there's obviously, how many pink Mercedes-Benzes do you see? You do not walk into a dealership and there's a rainbow, all the colors of the rainbow is available to you there. No, in that case, there's obviously going to be delay in the delivery of a product because they have to specifically color it to the specs or requirements of the customer. Okay, so they take the risk. They get involved in transportation, in other words, to get the products from the manufacturer to the consumer. It usually goes to the retailer, and now the retailers nowadays also have your home deliveries, so they can even take it to the customer's home. They are all part of a distribution channel. Okay, storage is very important. That's a very, very big function that's fulfilled by the intermediaries in the distribution channel, because the products must be kept somewhere. If you're going to continuously manufacture, you can't let's say you manufacture 1,000 cars a day at the VW plant in somewhere in the Eastern Cape, I think. Those 1,000 that you have finished today, they've got to go. You can't keep it because tomorrow you're making 1,000 again. Where are you going to keep that? So you're going to run out of space. And that's where the distribution comes in. Immediately when those products are finished and completed, they probably spend a day in storage, and then it actually is on the trucks and it goes out to the dealerships. And that's why we see many of these trucks on the road transporting 5-10 vehicles. That's usually from the Eastern Cape, where the majority of the manufacturers have their factories, or vehicle manufacturers in South Africa have their factories. Right. Let's look at the different basic distribution channels. What's in a distribution channel? The distribution intermediaries fulfill a number of roles, like I've just said, and this is just the illustration to summarize what I've just said now. They are involved in transaction activities. That's where they are buying it from the manufacturer. They are taking the risk, and they are then could also sometimes, and it happens in that a distributor in the or intermediary in the distribution channel can fulfill more than one role. Often they fulfill the logistical role as well, but it could also be fulfilled by somebody completely different. And the logistical activities refer to the transportation of the products, the storage of the products, rearranging the products, for instance, because they're getting it from 5 different suppliers, for instance, and then before it goes out to the wholesaler, they have to not necessarily repackage it, but ensure that the particular order is made up correctly before it goes out to the wholesaler. They also fulfill a facilitating function. There's facilitating activities involved as well. That is quality assurance, checking the stock. It's all done electronically nowadays. And to ensure that where products that need instructions for customers, that those instructions are clear and it's included and it's checked. So you have an intermediary in the distribution channel that fulfill all 3 of these functions, or are involved in all 3 of these activities, but it can also be done separately by different intermediaries. Let's look at the different structures, for instance. I want you to share some ideas with me here. Those are the three basic distribution channels or marketing channels if consumer goods are involved. Give you an example of, let's say, the first one on the left. Manufacturer straight to the consumer. Anybody? Going. Anybody? McDonald's. Let me see. Yeah, McDonald's can be an example of you as a customer are buying it directly from the retail outlet, which is McDonald's, the McDonald's outlet. McDonald's as a business is not an example of the customer buying directly from, if there was only one McDonald's, like it was originally, then it would be an example or a clear example of nobody else involved, and therefore you basically go straight to McDonald's, and that's the only place you can buy it. Now that they're franchised and they're international, the same principle applies, but if you look at it from a customer's point of view, then the distribution channel would obviously be directly from the manufacturer, because the people making the burgers and the fries is McDonald's. You're buying it straight from them. Yes, therefore that is an example of the distribution channel. But McDonald's itself as a business, they don't make their burgers, or their patties for their burgers in the kitchen. They don't bake their buns for their burgers in their kitchen. They get that from other suppliers. Okay, so it is an example also of different manufacturers, or in this case McDonald's, through different franchises offering through different retail outlets, depending on where you find yourself geographically, the products made available for the customer just to drive through or to walk in. Okay. Bakery, Kaiden, yes, bakery similarly. Bakery is probably, yeah, an individual bakery. Yes, can be a good example of that. They get their raw materials from a specific supplier, and then they bake the breads and you buy it. So they are not delivering their breads to retail outlets like Spar and Pick n Pay and Checkers. You buy from the bakery directly. Another example would be a farm stall on the farm where a tourist on his way from Cape Town to Namibia or Uppington or wherever stops at a farm. Yes, thanks, Conroy. Stops at the farm store and he buys products. The products that are sold at a farm stall there have not been bought by the farmer from the Spar in town. Those are products that have been produced on his farm. It might be that it's fresh, or it might be canned products, but it's all from the farm that where there's a farm stall is where you'll find the farm stall. Okay. Yes. Kaiden, the stalls at a flea market would also be an example where you're buying directly from the person who have made it. It's usually people who have specific skills, unless you've got one of those tables where a lot of second-hand or used items are just collected by that individual and on display, and there's no particular theme. Like for instance, products that usually sauces and stuff like that, and that's specifically handcrafted items that is made usually by the owner as well, of that stand who's displaying it. That is a very good example of a Caden, yes, of a manufacturer, or customers buying directly from the manufacturer, the person who's produced the product. Right, I think you'll find it slightly easier to give me an example of a distribution channel where there's a manufacturer, a retailer, and a customer involved. Anybody can give me an example of that? Manufacturer, retailer, customer, not directly. Clothing stores, yep, clothing stores, good example, thank you very much. Products that you buy from Fashini or from Markham's or from any of these retail stores, they don't make the dresses at the back. They get the dresses from different suppliers, and they also have different labels from different designers that they sell on the through their retail shop. So that is an example where the manufacturer uses different retail outlets to distribute their products to, where the customer can buy it from. Usually, it's your first example of manufacturer directly to the customer is usually something that is local, where manufacturers, retailers, and consumers as a channel is usually when it is either at more than one outlet within a particular geographical area, or maybe even a national company throughout an entire country, for instance. Willies, yes, good example, Lebo. Candace, yes, the restaurants are similar examples of head of restaurants. Let me see, restaurant, you get your products. The restaurants also, they don't have their own bakeries, they don't have their own butcheries. They still get the produce from a particular supplier. They manufacture, in other words, prepare the food, and you buy it from them. So yes. Any other examples that you guys can think of? Your pick and pays, your retail outlets, pick and pay, national company, Spar, any of these retailers. Checkers, yes, Candace, very good example of also of Click similarly, now being part of the pick and pay group, but they're all classic examples of our second distribution channel. Yes, this came two of a manufacturer that uses retailers to get the products to places where the customers can buy them. Your third channel, where the wholesalers and retailers are involved, or where there's wholesalers involved as well, is probably it's probably the distribution mechanism that is used most widely used, I would think, in our country, where you'll probably find, let me think of an example. I think that I want to use. Macro is probably the one that comes to mind immediately. Macro does not, they have the products in bulk, they have different suppliers, they keep it, and then the retailers get it from them or they distribute it to the retailers. The option is obviously also there for the customer to buy directly from that particular outlet. But I would say, yeah, that's probably a very good example, or the best that I can think of at the moment. Right. How do we structure a question like this, for instance, in an exam paper or in a test? Well, there's many ways in which it could be asked. I could provide you with all three different options like that. I can ask you to, maybe by removing some of those items, to populate that for me. Let's say, for instance, I empty the block where it says in the middle, the second distribution channel. I replace the content, and you have to select from options that's given to you that you can populate those blocks. We could also ask you to identify in a particular case study what distribution or marketing channel structure is used by such a particular business, referring to the case study. So it's more applied than anything else that you're going to get. What I also would like to just point out is that you have similar structures where services are involved. Now, services, if you can remember correctly from the last chapter we did, I think it's chapter 12, services and services marketing. Remember those 5 characteristics that make products and that differentiates products from services: intangibility, inseparability, heterogeneity, lack of ownership, perishability. Remember those 5 characteristics? That's what makes a product different from a service. Now, to market a service is a different effort. We add the extra 3 P's to the marketing mix: people, processes, and the physical evidence. And the way in which it's distributed is similar, but it's also to a certain extent different. An example of a service that happens directly between customer and the service provider. Can you think of any? A barber, yes, most definitely. Caden, you have to be there for your hair to be cut. I can't send somebody else to have your hair cut. It's a good example. It's a service that's performed by the service provider and directly to the customer. Similarly, with a doctor and a dentist, those are other examples as well of service of a distribution channel for a services or for a service provider. Right. Sometimes we have a broker that's involved. In other words, the service provider might be an insurance company like Outsurance or Mutual or Sanlam or Santam or any of these. Discovery for that matter. And they have people who represent them, and not just in some cases more than one of those different companies are represented by a broker, and the customer deals with the broker initially, who identifies what the problem or what the specific need is, and then basically tailor makes the best solution for that customer and recommends the customer what he has to do. And from then on, in some cases, the interaction is directly between a customer and a service provider. Initially, the broker fulfills that function of basically introducing the products that the service provider has to the customer, who then, once a decision has been taken, nowadays are not as involved anymore. And I think you'll find sometimes that customers nowadays have become very self-sufficient and very independent. And if you offer the financial services because you're a bank, Traditionally, banks are open from 8:30 in the morning till say 4 in the afternoon, or from 9 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoon. They're open till lunchtime on a Saturday, and they're not open on a Sunday. Those were your sort of traditional business hours for financial services like banks. And then they realized that the majority of people cannot use their services during that time. So a lot of things have become self-service, like an ATM, for instance. It's still a service that's provided by the customer, by the service provider, but it the actual transaction is conducted by the customer themselves. So things have also changed over a period of time, and therefore sometimes some of the original functions that were present in a distribution channel has been removed. It's been removed sometimes maybe because of a cost factor, and then also sometimes because of technology, where the function were replaced by technology, which means that the interaction between the customer and the service provider is more direct. Where there's retailers involved, you find sometimes that you have a Vodacom or any of the cell phone suppliers. They are the service provider. It's offered through different retail outlets. Yes, there's a physical product involved, but there's also, remember from our definition of what a service is, we sometimes have hybrids, like restaurants, for instance, and hotels. Their main function is to provide that service, but they also have tangible products which is needed for that service actually be to complete. So retailers, where retailers are involved, it basically refers to the different outlets. Similarly to the example that I've used, it's similar to the manufacturer of vehicles that we have seen in the previous one, where consumer goods are involved. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to say to you about the different channels. We're not going to go into industrial products. We are just going to see what channel conflict is, and channel conflict basically refers to the situation where a intermediary sometimes perceive another intermediary as a threat, because they are cutting prices so they can get more business, and then there's conflict. It could be that that the manufacturer then changes to a different intermediary, because they don't want to find. I had an experience myself many years ago where I was involved with a particular business that had a product that was now. I was approached by a company to supply the product to supply our product to them. We came to an agreement, and I supplied it to them. What they then did is they changed the content of the product, and they added an additional amount to the one I was selling to them and offering that to their customers. Now, that wasn't the intention. If I knew that that was going to happen, then firstly, I wouldn't have gone into such an agreement, and secondly, the customer is now paying extra for something that he can get for the normal price from somebody else. But that sometimes happens, and when these things happen, there's conflict within the distribution channel, and manufacturers usually sort this out because they just change the intermediaries that they use to prevent from getting involved in a process like that. The factors that can determine the distribution channel design would be obviously the customer's characteristics. The characteristics of the product is probably the most important one. The characteristics of the manufacturer and the characteristics of the existing distribution system. Is it working? Is the current system working? Do we need to change it? I've used examples now where, as a result of technology, certain functions in the distribution channel has been replaced or have been removed. But just be aware of these functions or factors, sorry, that distribution channel design that influence the design of a distribution channel. In other words, which one of those structures that we have that we've shown in our diagrams is going to be the best appropriate one, and maybe a particular distribution or marketing channel structure that we've used for a period of time is not the best option for us anymore. And then we have to change it, and it often changes as a result of the characteristics of the product. Right, the rest of the chapter is just examples of different types of wholesalers and retailers, just to help you again with linking this to those illustrations that we did previously today on the different structures. Right, anybody at this stage? There's some more examples. The hump test you've done previously, so we don't have to do that. Any questions before we close our session for today and you are one step closer to weekend? Candace, Caden, those of Tarquin, everybody all good? Thank you very much. Model student, Candace. Nothing phases you. Everything is always good. I'm glad. Right, people, to summarize what I started off with today, any logistical information regarding how exams, specifically interventions, and what will happen if there are interruptions during the exam, and how the whole process will be monitored. I will keep you updated every time we have a class until we have our last class. As the information comes through, and as you receive information and you're unsure about the information that was communicated to you and you want to check it, just share it with me and I will take it up with people who made those decisions, so we can give you an explanation of how they've reached that particular decision. At this point, you've done well. You've got 1 week to go, believe it or not, and then it would have been the end of your first semester at Stadio. You've done well. Congratulations. Reward yourself this weekend by, yeah, having a good time. I mean, it's important. Thanks, Tiffany. Everybody else, stay safe. The third wave has hit us. Just be careful. Have a very nice weekend, everybody. Tarquin, I think for registrations, just contact the main number. The main contact number, yeah,